Mitch, please, since 2016. Flying with angels, dancing with devils, caught in between a saint and a rebel. Trying to live my best life, go into it like a WWF fight. And the fans are screaming, they got my back like I'm really beaming. So beam me up, Scotty, kicking down doors like I know karate. I got the fuego like Mojave, getting high is my hobby. Mitch Lee in 2016. Podcast so ill, it might catch a body. Can't no one harm me. It would take more than the army to stop Mitch Valentine from doing what he gotta do. He stays on his grind. R.I.P. Joe Rogan. Y'all better know that we coming. We ain't ever running. So turn up the sound and keep it 100. Keep it 100. Mitch Valentine, keep it 100. Keep it 100. Mitch Lee Podcast, keep it 100. Now chill. Yeah, hashtag make dreams happen. Pro Championship Entertainment. At Heartbreaker MV. At PCE since 2015. Yeah, follow your dreams, y'all. Mitch, please, since 2016.
It is a beautiful day in Chico, California. We are out here at probably the nicest park I've ever been to in my life. We got a nice breeze going. This is Mitch Valentine. Welcome to Mitch, please. And I'm really excited to bring in a guest that I have wanted to have on this show since I started the show. He is the one, the only, Chico Lopez.
Hey, how's it going?
Bro, what is up, man? We haven't really talked in over a year. It's good to see you, man. It's good to talk to you, and we're gonna tell your story today, man. So, how did it all start for you? What was life like growing up?
So I don't know. When it comes to like just in general, I grew up in Southern California. So I grew up in a town called Santa Barbara. Lived with my grandparents for a good portion of my childhood, and it was nice. It was a good upbringing. You know, we had the beach right there, so we're always doing that every weekend. Go out, play soccer, and all that kind of stuff. So I was very athletic, whether it was doing stuff at school or whatever. But you know, life was good growing up.
What kind of stuff were you into, man? Like for me, I love the Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers. And what about you? What were some of the things you were into as a kid?
Well, let's see. So there's that slight age gap between you and I. So mine would probably still start with like G.I. Joe, but yeah, Ninja Turtles were a good one. And then of course, I'd have my wrestling figures, my WWF, action fixtures and stuff. And as you can see, my son in the background, he knows that I still get stuff nowadays when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah, he still got WWE characters.
So, I'd have the wrestling characters, and I'd have my own little ring, but I would use my G.I. Joe guys and my Ninja Turtle guys, and they would just have this big battle royal between each other. And
I always ask, man, favorite Ninja Turtle?
Oh, man. It's always been a toss-up between Mikey and Raph, but Raphael all the way.
Yeah, for sure. I go Leo. But yeah, no, I love them all. I actually just watched the old movies from the early 90s. The first one was good. The second one was okay. The third one was just terrible.
The third one honestly makes no sense. Like they just go back in time and all this stuff, and it's hard to follow.
So you're talking about wrestling at early on. What got you into wrestling? When did you start getting into pro wrestling?
Life is hard for kids.
Oddly enough, it was my mother. I was actually growing up in Boston.
Apparently, life is hard for kids.
Yes, that is.
Life is hard for kids.
Special appearance from Jackson Lopez. What's up, Jackson? With an X. How are you doing?
Nothing.
So, yeah, like I was saying, it was actually my mom. My mom, we were growing up. I think the first time I really started getting into wrestling was I was living in Boston, Massachusetts for a little bit. And I think I was probably like 4 or 5.
Now, how did you go from Santa Barbara to Boston?
So, my dad actually, as of right now, he's a professor at Chico State. So, during this whole timeline of me growing up, he was going to different colleges, learning how to get his, his doctorate, basically. So, he actually went to the University of Notre Dame and Northridge, and that's how he kind of got over into Boston. So, for that time period, I just remember my dad being out of town, or he was at school or something, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and as we all know, that Saturday's main event or the prime time would come on, and just before that they would have the Glow was on. And for those of you, those the Glamorous Ladies of Wrestling, which was something to really try to grasp your head around of what you're watching of females, because with the guys you just see hulking big dudes that are totally jacked, and then you see these females in like bright leotard, hair blown out like crazy, and my mom was like, oh, we're gonna watch this, and then little do you know, like right after that WWF comes on, and that's where the first time I saw the Ultimate Warrior, and I saw guys like Macho Man and obviously Hulk Hogan, but once I saw the Ultimate Warrior, I was hooked.
But the first wrestling you saw was Glow.
First wrestling, technically, yes, was Glow. Yeah.
That explains the hair.
Yeah, that explains that, the makeup, the attire, everything.
That's cool. So Hogan, Warrior, so the typical big top baby faces of the time were the guys you were drawn to?
Yeah. I was also intrigued by, guys like Jake the Snake Roberts. Not only because he was, literally coming out to the ring with a huge python, but some of the angles that he would have with, with the performers that he was going up against at that time. The things that he would use in promos. When I was a kid, didn't quite make any sense, but you were still intrigued to it. And as I got older and I kind of went back and rewatched these, it was just like, wow, like this guy really put together his segments for what he was trying to get everybody to believe in that he was doing.
Oh yeah, dude, he made you listen because he talks so low, but he made you like get in, lean in and listen to what he was saying and what he was doing. You said you were into sports, man. What kind of sports did you get into as a kid?
I was into baseball, soccer, definitely basketball was my main one. Tried to get into football, but realistically, I was a fast kid to where if I got the ball or if I caught the ball, I was not going to get hit. But when it came to be given the ball and like try to go up, up the line, that was just not my thing. The second I got hit, I was like, I'm not big enough for this shit.
That's crazy you love basketball, dude. We never talked about that because I love basketball too. It's like the only thing I really played in high school, and like that's crazy. We never played basketball or anything,
right?
But no, okay. So going through high school, you still loved wrestling this whole time. Did you know like that was what you wanted to go after high school?
I guess it's a hit or miss. Like, let's see, junior high school. Like, basically, I transferred here from the Bay Area. And so I had already been established with all my friends and going into what was going to be then high school at that time. Got transferred to here to where my dad took the Chico State offer. And I didn't really have many friends, so I didn't really know what to do. But, when there was the time before class or recess or whatever, I would always be on the basketball court. So I kind of got my friends through that. And then oddly enough, I kind of met two of my friends. One of them happens to be the uncle of my kids now. And we just kind of started doing this, meeting up at our house and throwing down, backyard wrestling on the grass, or we'd be at PV out on the field, just literally using every bit and piece of the whole field, whether it's the bleachers, fences, whatever, the cages. We turn it all into our own little creation where we're wrestling for like a half an hour. not really know what the shit we're doing, but we're just taking these crazy ass bumps or doing stuff that we thought was cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
Who was the other guy? You said your kid's uncle and.
So the other one was his name. I'm not gonna really mention it, but he was friends with my brother-in-law.
Gotcha.
So they were friends first. I basically kind of clicked in with them, and we just kind of were a trio, the three of us. It was kind of like we always, we'd always just kind of come up with matches or some backyard stuff that we want to do. We drive out to places, and we're like, you want to just, mess around and beat the shit out of each other for 15 minutes, and So.
Did you like film it and stuff, or like?
Yeah, I actually out of them, I had a camera. My dad got me a little handheld camera for my birthday. So whoever wasn't wrestling was the one holding the camera, filming everything,
right,
while the other two were doing whatever. Or if we end up deciding, we're gonna turn it into a triple threat type of thing, we just kind of prop it up and be like, hey, make sure the camera's only gonna get from here to here. Don't go outside that, or we gotta stop and then move it.
Gotta work the camera, kid.
Yeah.
I thought you might say the other guy was Brian Cage, because I know that you told me like you and Brian kind of started the whole MWF thing.
So what we ended up doing was, it was a weird merger. So my brother-in-law was friends or mutual friends of Brian's, and Brian and his friends had their own group, and they were doing trampoline wrestling at the time. So we just decided, hey, let's merge our friends with your friends and kind of just create our own kind of like group, which then through Brian and his friends, they managed to get a ring assembled and made, customly made. And that's where the whole, Second and Warner arena, I guess, or whatever, like it was backyard, but Brian had his ring there.
Right.
So we'd set that up during the weekdays, and we'd practice, and then on the weekends we'd all get together and we'd basically have weekend shows. And Second and Warner, that's pretty much just a slight outskirts of downtown Chico and the college town. So
how old were you at this time when you started getting with Brian, getting a real ring and doing stuff on the weekends?
I think I was 19 or 20
for sure.
So yeah, I think I was probably about 19 or 20, and we just started doing that every week, and it kind of grew. Like, we'd noticed that more and more people would show up, and like, we didn't charge nobody, we were just doing our own thing.
Oh, the ice cream truck is coming. False alarm, it was not the ice cream truck. But yeah, we're just talking about the origins of MWF, the beginnings of you and Brian, basically putting together shows together. I mean, what was the deal, man? Because there was a big cast of characters. I know Shoop was involved. Take me through all that. How did it start? How long did it go for?
Let's see. I want to say it went for a couple good years, because we started at the Warner Street, and it was it was a good clique of us that pretty much came together. Yeah, of course, that's where I met Shoop. There's Casey Sanders, who came along with Shoop. Let's see. Brian has his buddies, so there was we had, what was it? Steven was his name. He played Crazy Captain Steve-O. Dio Balarasa, I think it was his last name, so pardon if I got that messed up, but there was that guy. But Brian at the time was also hooking up with Zach and getting training from PCW.
Right.
So let's see. I think there was another guy, Joe Thorburn.
Yeah, Kilburn. Yeah, but yeah.
So there's another one.
So Brian would go. Okay, so Brian would go to PCW, get it, kind of learned his fundamentals, and then he would run like a training for all of you guys in Chico, right?
Yeah. So like, with the dynamics of how the work farm was, when I started going there, and then going back to what Brian was learning, Brian was kind of having us kind of get the baby steps of what he was picking out. And you could tell there was some of us that wanted to learn that, and then there was the rest of them that were just kind of like, I'm just kind of here doing it for fun. I'll pick and choose my moments. But, guys like Shoot, myself, a couple other ones, my brother-in-law, we were soaking it up, whatever Brian was showing us. me especially, whatever Brian was showing me or showing the group or whatever, I was just a sponge to it. So it's like I kind of already had an idea of what I could mimic on TV, because now I have a ring to do it in, compared to just flipping around on the grass or your bed or whatever, you know. Definitely having Brian come up in there and kind of show me some other stuff was a good stepping stone for when eventually I did make my way to PCW.
Well, at this time, you're 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
Or so. And you're learning from Brian and everything. But was there any thought or you know, did you ever think, like, man, maybe I should go out to Yuba City or go down to APW in Hayward or whatever and, like, really, you know, get a I don't know, I want to call it more qualified, like, serious school to get to hone your craft? Was that ever something that you thought about at 20?
I kind of contemplated it, because I think I do remember that I did go to Yuba City when Zach was training down there. That was during the time of when Schizo was in charge. I think I've met Schizo. I might have met Schizo once, and that was briefly. Yeah, but there were still guys like Bear. Bear was down there, and this is back when Bear was, you know, in good shape. Of course, you know, Brian was going there. I ran into AJ Kirsch. Definitely was around Scotty Abu. Definitely remember James, but I think the reason why I kind of got... I basically kind of got the feeling like, hey, this would be something I should do, is because I had met Rick back when I was like, I think 18 or 19. And that was down in Vacaville. And Rick was known as Rick Vandal at the time. And he was working a show that I just happened to be helping out with. And someone no-showed, and he had seen some of the... He had actually brought me out to, I think it was his house or someone else's, and they had the ring in the backyard. And Rick just wanted to see me do this cradle pile driver. And it's not like... This one was the double underhook cradle pile driver, where the guy that you're giving it to has to trust you a lot, because, you know, if you don't do it right, you're basically just dropping him straight on his head. And my buddy was like, "Yeah, Rick, you gotta let, you know, check it out. It looks gross as hell once you see it get delivered."
It's the Kid Cash one, right?
Yes. Or the J Driller, as it is with the Briscoes. And I nail this picture perfect. And just like when you see, I'm not sure, but Tommy Dreamer had given a pile driver to RVD, and you see his head hit, and then RVD bounces literally like 2 feet up off the ground and then hits the mat. And that's exactly as I delivered to him, but I'm still holding onto the guy. So as the impact hits, I kind of more or less like lift his arms up, and he goes bouncing off of me, and it looks devastating as hell, and especially at the time. So this show, Rick...
Scooter!
Alright, let's stop real quick. So Rick sees this, and a few hours later, you know, the show's going on, all this stuff. Rick's in the main event. He's got this dog collar match, you know, that he's going to be taking on. But there's these two twins, and I would have it would have been hilarious down the road if the twins was the, you know, Dustin and Derek, you know, so
Commandos.
The Commandos. It would have been great if it was them, but it was another set of twins. They were Hispanic and they were short and shit. But someone no-showed, so Rick told me, "Hey, you got stuff that you could wear, you know, to go out there and work this tag team tornado match?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm down for it." He's like, "All right, you know, I need you to just go out there, work with them, and keep it simple but hardcore stuff, and then, you know, they're gonna go over, but at the end I need you to hit that pile driver so everybody sees that O factor." And of course, match goes on. We do our little spots, and you know, at that time I'm still green as shit going inside of a ring, but this is the first time I'm actually doing it in front of like an actual audience.
Is this before you were training with Brian?
Yeah.
So I mean, you have no experience at all, and this is just like
this is straight up the first time I've ever been in an actual ring.
Holy shit!
But I've gotten the gist of it. Like
that's crazy.
You know, I end up working a couple more shows with this company down the line, so you know, I got the experience of being in a ring.
Right.
but not have to do the whole backyard stuff, because now I feel more comfortable that I'm doing stuff in a ring. The match goes on, it does its thing, and I hit the kid with the pile driver. The crowd goes crazy, and they're selling it as if like I broke the kid's neck and all that stuff. So that was like my first good experience, and shout out to Rick for giving me a little spot way, way before my time.
Yeah. So, okay. So then fast forward, and you get with Brian, and you were saying you just, maybe, was it a financial thing? Like you didn't want to, it's thousands of dollars to get wrestling training, usually. If you go to an APW or a PCW or wherever, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Was that something that you were like, well, why pay a bunch of money when I'm here in Chico and I can just learn from Brian? Was that
to me, that's exactly it. Realistically, if you have that opportunity, I'm that kind of a guy. It's not saying that I'm like that I was taking like a lazy route about it, but it's just like that was an opportunity to where, if you could soak up some knowledge without having to pay for it, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt that it was. It was definitely a financial thing that, it would have been real hard for me to try to go out to APW or PCW at the time, because I think I was getting like the $50 or $100 trials or whatever that they were doing at the time. And, I just couldn't afford that.
What were some of your favorite moments or matches in the MWF?
Personally, myself, I had great matches with Brian. Him and I would, I think realistically, him and I were probably the more experienced guys to be in the ring wrestling an actual, independent wrestling match, compared to some of the other guys where, you could just tell it was just thrown together. We didn't have to coordinate as much. We kind of knew like, hey, if we get to here, we're going to do this, do that. We had a pretty good build-up at one point where I think it wasn't like a 3 stages of hell type match, but it was something along the lines to where, I think it was like a last man standing or something. But I was actually the first guy to blade Brian Cage, because he wanted to get color, but he'd never done it before, and I've already done it a couple times to where I knew what I was doing. So I kind of just gave him a pointer of, hey, this is how you do it, and we got to the spot where I had already been busted open, and it was time for his turn, and he was going to look like he was going to we're on the outside of the ring, and he looked like he was going to lawn dart me into the turn post, but instead I kind of moved out of the way. I push him into it. He smacks his head. He goes down, goes to go for his cut, and he kind of hesitates, and he says, you don't think he's got it. So now I have Brian Cage sitting in a prone position, and I'm just kind of digging in some shots to his head, and at the same time as I'm doing this, I'm literally grabbing the blade from his hand, placing it in my hand, and then coming back down with punches at the same time, all in one motion, so that no one else that was around could see what we're doing. And I gave him his first cut. And the images that we had for when we're having our DVDs made there's this good zoom up on it, and you're just watching him leak, and it was quite a sight to see, because this is Brian Cage. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of this, and then to see him
I let other men cut me with a blade.
Yeah, I'll let somebody else stick me, and why not be you, because you're so infamous with always having blades on you or knives and so
how did you come up with the name Draven?
Obviously I'm a Crow fan. Anybody who's watched the movie The Crow with Brandon Lee up in it, I always thought that was a cool character, and this is obviously just before Sting had done the whole thing with turning into the black and white, face paint coming from the Raptors, and his name was Eric Draven, or right. The character's name. So I don't know, that ever since I just saw how that name was, spelled out on the tombstone, and it just stuck to me.
So the Draven name was something you thought of in what, like you said, before Sting was doing the Crow, like in the 95 or 96 or something?
Yeah, because the Crow movie came out, but then it kind of got like that cult following.
Right.
So as it got bigger and bigger, I think it kind of got more into the mainstream, and it especially got bigger once the accident on the film where Brandon Lee's life was taken from a bad stunt.
Yeah. So
with that popularized, I had already just picked out the name. I just started rolling with it just on little things, whether it was an email or a username or something, whatever. I just always had Draven XXX.
So you stuck with that name, I mean, for like a decade, because MWF was around until about 2006. Unfortunately, I never got to go to a show, never got to see any of it, except for what's on DVD. And then you would join the Work Farm in 2011. So my question is, between 2006 and 2011, what were you doing?
So, what was the question again?
Oh no, between 2006 and 2011, from when MWF shut down to when you came out to the Work Farm and started training, there's like 5-year period, right? Like, what was going on? What were you up to?
Let's see. Can I actually remember those years? There was a lot of things going on during that time period. I think during that time period, it was me kind of coming to grips that I needed to start making money. Like, I didn't go to school. Wasn't a priority for me to go to school. So I figured, well, I guess, I need some change in my wallet. So doing the certain activities that I was doing... Doing certain activities that I was doing to make money wasn't making me fast enough. And unfortunately, I just decided I was going to go and apply for a job at Taco Bell. And I got hired and kind of did 4 years of that, leading up to getting with my kid's mom. And then finding out I was going to be having my first kid. And kind of just, it was a big hiatus of just kind of like working, expecting to have a kid, and then, the follow-up to, what's set in stone as living the dream.
Yeah, I mean, so just real life, right? Real life always gets in the way of wrestling. But yeah, so there it was, man, the Living the Dream contest. The first one, 2011, it's like March.
Yeah.
Why did you enter?
So during this hiatus, Shoop was still out, venturing into training and wanting to work other shows and stuff. So, of course, he came across PCW, and, it was a thing when Living the Dream came around. If you were a trainee at PCW, it was kind of an obligation that, find some people out there to enter this competition, because the more that we bring in, the more that we can put out and eventually sell out bigger crowds and stuff. So I just get this message from Shoop out of the blue saying, hey bro, I know it's been a minute, I know you've kind of practiced out here back in the day, but we're doing this contest called Living the Dream, where we're gonna run you through a whole bunch of different exercises and activities, and if you can outlast everybody else and get voted, you'll win free training, or for like 6 months or a year, something, whichever we're doing at that time. And at that point, I had definitely gotten myself a good starting dad bod. Nothing compared to what I got going now, but at that time, I was not in any kind of shape or form of being able to think that I could do this. But on a whim, I just told Shoop, I was like, all right, yeah, I'm down. Let's see what good, it's not going to hurt me none.
Yeah, well, I mean, you came out, it was obvious, like, okay, this guy's been in the ring before, like, you moved well, you kind of just picked up things pretty naturally. But, I mean, what was your, like, that first time going out there in the Loma Rica to the shed, right? What were you thinking out there, seeing, like me and Zach and Shoop and I think Fanga, and what was your thought of the whole situation?
Wow, venturing out there for the first time, yeah, you're getting on the freeway, you're getting off in Oroville, and then you kind of just start taking these really rural type roads that eventually become like one way. Like one car can be on it, and the other car's either got to wait a little stop, or you guys are gonna, the blinding turns, just the sticks, whatever you could think. When somebody brings up the word, hey, we're heading out to the sticks, like, this was it, you know. Finally getting out on that road, that gravelly road, picking up that dust on the way out there and pulling into Bill Reed's place. And, you know, I've been out there a few times prior to living the dream, but to see the barn, livestock, yeah, once you get out there, it was something else. It was just like, wow, all right, so we're doing this, and we're going to make something of it. And, of course, we get into the, you know, it was like running, calisthenics, all this, you know, everything that you would expect that's going to put your body through so much shit before you could actually get to being in the ring. And by the time you're usually in the ring, your body feels like jelly. You know, your legs are giving out on you, you're winded, your arms are kind of like just noodly. But I don't know, as soon as I got in the ring, it's like riding a bike. Just things were natural to me.
Yeah, and that was pretty obvious, I think, to everybody. But how far did you go? Because I know, you know, at the end of the contest, it was, you know, Johnny the Muscle Dog Metzger. He ain't got no quit in him. But how far did you go?
So let's see. I don't think it was Johnny. I don't think Johnny was in that first one.
Yeah, no, he won the first one. It was because it came down to the Muscle Dog, who ain't got no quit in him, and the other guy from Sacramento, the tall guy, the Afro, Will Roberts, and JJ King.
Okay, yeah.
That was the final four.
Oh, yeah.
So you must have been like 5. How did you not get in the final four?
So, what was it? I think it came down to like the run and one of the other activities that we're doing that like my numbers were just low. But when it came down to the in-ring performance, I was pretty much like on the top tier for those ones. And you know, what happened was I was kind of more or less competing with Casey Sanders at the time, because he was the only other guy that I knew of that could probably keep up with me compared to everybody else. Will Roberts, man, that's my bro right there. That kid, you know, he was something else. He was coming straight out of, you know, the service. So he kind of had to step up with all that crazy shit when we're, you know, like, doing the calisthenics and stuff. Like, he was killing it. And at one point, I think we were doing some kind of weird ab, you know, sitting hold thing, and he just wasn't going to give up. So at one point I was like, I'll just go to the next one. I gave up instantly because I said, what's the purpose of doing all this? And as we were kind of getting our lineups of who was going to be in the finals, I get pulled off to the side by Zach, and Zach tells me, he's like, hey, listen, man, you're not going to make it to the finals. We're not putting you in the finals. You know that you should be, and you know why we're kind of keeping you out of it. And it has to do with the fact that you kind of already have a step ahead of all these other guys that we're picking, and we kind of want to be able to mold them. And we're not saying that you're not capable of this and that you can't win, but I'm rather cut you a better deal with the training on the offside, because I can see you being able to perform and get up in the class that, you know, yourself, Shoop, and Fanga were already up in, as to where I was still considered a green guy in the PCW level. So I understood that, and he pretty much told the same thing to Casey too, but of course Casey's a hard-headed guy and kind of took it the wrong way or whatever and just thought it was rigged. But, you know, I could see where Zach was going, and I understood what he was doing, and I think it was better off in the long run. I would have rather have had that choice of being a guy that wasn't picked, because realistically, I still to this day, for what I remember as being the shortest time training before an in-ring debut, which was awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to get there. The Living the Dream had like the tough enough curse, man, where like the winner would never really, he'd end up quitting.
Yeah.
But it was guys like you, like Propane was in the first one too, and he didn't even make it very far, but he won the championship eventually down the line. So for you though, you know, came back in March, and yeah, by August you were ready to go and have a match at a live show, and your first opponent, I think it was supposed to be Fanga, but then it ended up being APW legend, man, the Mountain from Stone Mountain, Larry Blackwell, in his last PCW match.
Yeah.
How was that?
Nerve-wracking. Because when it came down to it, I'd get on YouTube and I'd check out APW's, weekly shows or whatever they had up on there at the time that they were streaming. And so I knew of Larry Blackwell and stuff, and I had seen exactly, I think he was with the Carnival at the time, with Jekyll's, and he was just a big dude. But what I was more nervous about was the fact that, Larry had put in some years. So, he had already gotten this soaked up into him of what professional wrestling was. Me, I'm coming in as making not just me being in a ring kind of debut, but an actual professional debut with an actual veteran of this APW, this area, this side of the states. So, leading up to it, I was constantly working out. I was getting handmade gear. Right. I had my mom make my gear. I had bought the singlet pants, and I had this little Aztec sun design, and I was just like, hey, Mom, and, you think you put something together? And she got it together just in time, and, just needed to get some boots, which, thank God, I think I didn't get that gear yet. Now that I think about it, I actually had to borrow some from Rick again. I had to borrow some pants from Rick, and I borrowed a pair of boots. And, then I go out there as a fat, clean-shaven, baby-faced Hispanic with the moniker of his name being Chico, because I live in Chico, and my last name is Lopez, which, if you remember the story of what Zach made me do, he had written down all these names that he wanted me to translate into Spanish. And then, as soon as I get them translated, your ass wakes up out of the blue, right, yelling Chico. And then all that hard work that I just spent trying to translate these goddamn names, you came out of the blue and you're like, oh, now it's Chico.
Well, I know we wanted, because you were Draven for so long, and that was kind of just like Shoop was Mike Omega.
Yeah.
And we kind of wanted to wash that off, and we turned him into Shoop Shellhammer. Same thing for you. We wanted to wash off the Draven, and then everyone called you Lopez. And then, yeah, dude, I don't know. I just woke up one day, and I just said it like a ring announcer, and I was just like, Chico Lopez. And I was like, oh, it sounds good, especially since when we were doing shows in Chico. To have a guy named Chico, I thought
that show was going to be was in Chico. Wasn't it?
Your first one was in Yuba City, but we had done we were doing a lot of shows in Chico.
Off the Chain was.
Yeah, and so your first match is against Larry Blackwell. Yeah. You win, you go over.
Yeah.
Your second match is for the PCW Championship against Rick Luxury in Chico. How was that?
That was crazy, because it's weird to see that, a few years before I had met Rick, and then all this, flash forward, 5-6 more years or so, now I'm going to be wrestling Rick in Chico, and he happens to be the PCW heavyweight champion at the time with
Pink Pink
Inc. and Marcus Mack.
Right.
So that was crazy, but the build up to me I'm not sure if I was told that I was doing that. We just kind of had an idea that I was going to be wrestling because it was Chico. We just hadn't figured out the odds and ends at that point. But once we had come together, like, hey, we're going to put you up against Rick. Rick's going to think that he's not performing tonight. He's got the night off. And then out hits my music, which to this day, Zach loves it to death. Don't know what's wrong with this guy. But
can you sing it to us?
Thank God there's actually no lyrics. So it's just an actual... It's an actual sound, but it's a Daddy Yankee song. If you guys want to look up into it, go check it out. You can figure it out that way.
I Chico. Yeah, I was just watching that, one of those old matches the other day with that song. It's a good song. It gets the crowd going.
It gets the crowd going. It worked. It was a good starter for Chico Lopez, especially in Chico, and to have a bunch of my family and friends out there to support me during that time. Especially because, the title was on the line. That was kind of a cool kicker. But yeah, it was awesome, Got up in there, did my job for Rick. There's nothing more that I could ask. I thought it was awesome. The first beginning runs of just being able to get in the ring so early, and Zach put me up with guys that he's like, go for it, you'll handle it. Like, it's awesome to know that Zach could see that he didn't really have to worry about me as much as some other guys that were either on the show or in storylines or whatever. He just said, this is what's going on, you got it. I tell him we're cool, and I did my thing, and I usually never got too much backlash.
No, dude. I mean, and you'd go on, and we'd have a lot of tag matches. You and Shoop would start teaming up. We were training a lot, man. Me, you, and Shoop at the work farm, dude. I mean, twice a week, every week for years. I mean, yeah, man, like, you'd bring the best out in me, because at the time, I was top of the line or whatever, like, leading a lot of classes that Zach wasn't at, but then you would step in and be like, well, let's, or Zach would say, whatever, be like, let Chico help you out, or I would learn from you, you know what I mean, and some things that, that I didn't know, because nobody knows everything. But you just, dude, like, you just brought out, like, the best in me, bro. Like, you motivated me. I was like, well, I got to do this bump better than Chico, you know what I mean? Because you were just one of the best at the work farm. So it was really a good time, dude. Looking back, like, at those times, training, all those tag matches we had to do. We had a shitload of tag matches.
A lot of back and forth tag matches. And it'd always be different, even though, like, you would evolve your Mitch Valentine at the very beginning, and you'd have, you were with DeMarco, and then you got with
Will Rude.
Will Rude. You'd switch it up, and it'd always be different, but at the same time, it was like, we'd go out there, and to us, I always felt like we killed it. Like, when it was you and I up in the ring, we knew what we were doing. The crowd was hot. They'd hate you. They'd boo you. They were popping for me. And then, I know there was that one time that we switched the dynamics where where I took the heat, and Shoop was going to be coming in with the hot tag.
Oh, boy.
And
the hot tag from hell.
Oh, man. No one's fault, realistically, on that. Some things are just chemically, natural, and it just always seemed as if the crowd reacted better to Shoop getting the sympathy and getting the beatdowns on, because when he would make the hot tag and for me to come in, I just felt like I had more fire coming in, and I was able to hit stuff left and right. But yeah, that one time it was a hot tag, and then for some reason I was still hot even though I was blown up. And I'm trying to atomic drop both of you guys, and I literally could not. I couldn't get you guys up half the way, and then I think I had a drop kick on one of you guys, and I'm like, it was something else. It was a train wreck, but
it was one bad one and about 20 good ones. But yeah, like, for me, like, I know I felt like I had chemistry with Shoot because we had started training together. We did a bunch of singles matches everywhere, and we had good chemistry. But then with you, it was like a whole different chemistry where, like, it was more like with Shoop, I felt like a lot of the times, I'd be leading a lot of the things, and for you, it was more like we're both calling stuff. We're both kind of leading the match a little bit, and just the technical wrestling that you had, man. The things that you could do on the mat, the athleticism too, like the back handsprings and all that stuff that you could do. It was just a lot of fun, man. But transitioning from all that, you started working outside PCW, right? So what was that first? Show? Was it Reno, Gold Rush? Do you remember?
I think the first opportunity I got was with Reno. And, you, myself, and Shoop, we'd all head up out there, and we were kind of, clicking together with our stuff, and they'd put us up on the shows. And then eventually it was, I think Lester reached out to me, and he was like, hey, you want to work an angle up here? And I worked, what was his name? Andy Dalton? No.
Well, you worked Chupacabra.
Right?
Yeah. That was the first Reno show. I remember you working Chupacabra, and he blew you the hell up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was my first real test, because I don't think I was up against anybody that was like quicker than me at the time. And usually a lot of the guys that I was already wrestling with, they were already bigger than me, so I was the quicker of the two. So my pace was whatever I wanted to go at. Choopy's pace, he's just all over the place, but in a good way. Like, his character the way that he portrays himself in that ring, his athleticism, amazes me because I swear to God, it's just like he never was ever blown up no matter what he did. I think the last time that I wrestled him, at one point he was like, I think I gassed out real quick, but that was still even after he had done, like, we had already gone over so many things. But yeah, I've done Reno. I know a couple times we did Lake County.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Those ones are good ones. Good memories out there too. God. What else did I do? I think I did a couple for not Gold Rush, but no, Gold Rush. I think it was just as Sparky was taking stuff over for Pacifica that I did a couple out there, dark matches and rumbles or whatever. So yeah, I did a few, but I don't know. I always felt as if like I always felt like I got a better opportunity with just sticking to what I knew, and that was PCW. Like, I knew where my role was, whether it was having the angles with you or having angles with Shoop or, any new guys that were coming in that they just wanted to make sure that they could, settle in the right way.
Well, and dude, we gotta talk about the Chico Hammers, man. I mean, you and Shoop and Kimmy,
yeah.
You guys were a unit. You guys had the matching gear. You had the T-shirts. You had the crowd support. That was, and I know Reno used you guys, like Bushido used you guys, but I thought, man, that was one of the most like underrated, underused entities, man. I thought NorCal Wrestling were the Chico Hammers. Obviously, PCW I thought did right by you guys, but I mean, what were your memories of the Chico Hammers?
They were, that was a good time. We were considered like, the next rockers, I guess, in a sense. The whole Sean and Marty Jannetty, and Kimmy's integral in that part because people invested in the fact that we kind of had like our own little cheerleader. At the same time, it's Shoop's sister, and the way that they angled out stuff down the line, it is what it was. But a lot of the tag team opportunities that we had, like we got to wrestle with the Commandos, we got to wrestle with the Scum, which, my first PCW show that I watched was seeing, Adam and Lester out there. And, God, I was just like, I always wanted to share a ring with Adam because I don't know, I was drawn to him. I thought he was a great performer back then. He's even amazing now. Like, I'm very, honored to say that at one point in time I shared the ring with these guys. And they were professionally, they didn't hurt us. We were out there, we did our thing, and it was good times. The Chico Hammers had a lot of fans, whether it was, them following Shoop or Kimmy or myself. It all seemed like we were just able to gather a lot of people, and I don't know. At one point in time, we kind of felt like we were on fire, and we just never quite got, like, as soon as we got to the top, there was always something that knocked us right back down. And as it kind of played out, as it got longer, we kind of realized, like, both Shoop and myself, we started this stuff individually, and we clicked as a tag team because of the fact that, we trained with each other, and, we got along and all that stuff. But, we were ready to make our turn. And, of course, when the Chico Hammer split, we did it the same way as the Rockers kind of did, except it kind of just went backwards because, the one that got betrayed on was the one that kind of went out and had a little bit more success at first. But me and Shoop were always there, like almost neck and neck.
Yeah, you guys would go on for years to wrestle each other. Before also the Inter-California Championship, you won that championship from James Haight. Mm-hmm. You hurt your leg. Mm-hmm. I was with you in the ER that night. What was that like, man, to win that Inter-California Championship?
It was good because there was a lot of lead up going into that match, and again, I look at PCW as being Zach, MPT, Scotty Abu, James Haight, Rick Luxury. Those are the four cornerstones of PCW. And, my career now is that I've gotten to wrestle 3 out of those 4. The only one that I haven't really had a chance was Scotty, which would have been great. But, you never know what happens. But, with James Haight, it was a good angle. And we kind of knew what was going to be going on because Shoop had just won the breakout briefcase. Wrestling James was kind of crazy because he wanted me to start off real hot at the beginning. And, you see me he gets to the outside to powder out, and I hit that apron, Cactus Jack barrel roll. And I guess I over-rotated it, or I landed too high on James or whatever, and I know that my foot got placed on his back as he was falling down. And if you can imagine, when you if you have your hand out straight and you close it shut, that's what your hand does. Well, that's what my foot did, and your foot's not supposed to bend that way in general, or even that far. And I get up from the bump, and I could feel something sharp in my foot. But, of course, adrenaline kicks in. Once that's in you don't even think about it. And we go another 12, 15 minutes because that was the beginning of the match. So it was like there was still so much to do. And we get through that match. I win. The crowd goes crazy. It's my first championship. And then, if I remember right, I think I get jumped literally right after that, and then
Shoop cashed in.
Yeah, and then I lose the belt right then and there.
Right.
And then I'm supposed to have an angle with my arm. So, that night went over well. It was cool. I thought it was great how the build-up went into that, and of course the whole thing with Chico is once he gets to the top, something usually slips him up, and he's got to fall back down. And I wake up 6-something o'clock in the morning, knowing that my foot is killing me, and I wake up out of straight pain, and I have my kid's mom take me to the ER. I think I can't remember how you get caught up into it.
I rode with you. I was still drinking from the night before, still awake.
Okay, so
and I just was like, I'll go to the ER. Yeah, that sounds fun.
So there's the three of us chilling in the ER at Inlow.
Yeah,
and I go and find out that I didn't fracture my foot, but I had messed it up real bad, to where I was in a boot. I was walking around with crutches for a good time, and I was like, oh crap, this is gonna take a minute. And I was real hesitant that once my foot got better, that what's the likelihood that I'm just in the ring and I do a normal jump and I land on it and I re-injure it again, because I've gone my entire life, never injured anything, not broken a bone, no fractures, no separations, no dislocations, none of that. So this was something scary, and at the time I was still working, and thank God my boss was cool enough to let me kind of just run up in the front and just stand there and get paid. But that was kind of a crazy scenario that night.
Yeah, you weren't out long. That's how you ended 2013. You go into 2014, man. You and Shoop would be working all over for the IC title. You and Idris Jackson had a really good match. What were but you and Shoop, man, you guys were married for a while. Yeah. What were some of your favorite matches or moments with Shoop?
I think it was my second run. My long run of the Inter-California Championship is when I came back because we were technically saying that I injured my arm, and I think, and I can't remember if this was still the same timeline. It might have been, but I think we were doing a photo shoot at the work farm, and they wanted a still shot of one of us suplexing a guy. So here I am holding up Bright, or Atticus Lynch. I'm holding him up in a suplex position, and the camera guy, for some reason, cannot get the camera to focus to save his life. And I'm holding Bright up way longer than normally expected. And Bright's not, a heavy guy, but he's kind of tall for him. So, holding a guy up for a suplex for a good 30, 40 seconds or whatever kind of takes a lot out of you. And then not to do that, and then have to, put him down and hoist him back up to hopefully get the shot again, which the shots never got used, and I end up finding out that I almost dislocated my shoulder and tore some tendons in it. But leading that angle, it was that went right into the whole Shoop scenario, where he had thought that he had broken my arm. I get cleared by the doctors. I come in, we work our match, and I don't know, there's always something with Shoop, like he always kind of feel like, at that time, I guess, he always feels like he needs to impress more, or he's not doing something this way, that way, and that it could be better. But when he got in the ring with me, I, just like you say, it's like there's something about me being in the ring with other people that I bring out their best that they got, or something that they're not expected to use, or that they didn't have in them. And with Shoop, that's exactly what I thought. That we went out there and we did our thing. He became a major player and becoming, getting heat for himself and establishing himself as a bad guy, because he's always looked at himself as, oh, I'm smaller than most guys, so they're not going to look at me as a bad guy. I'm going to be looked at as just a babyface. And his rivalry, him and I going back and forth and getting that belt, and then the vignettes that he would play out with Lee Perfetto and Propane.
Great stuff.
Classic. I actually missed that time period, because whatever Shoop did for that angle after I had taken the belt off of him, and him kind of going to this manic depression, schizo.
Eating the cat food was my
hiding in dark places, and just this on-screen ability with him and Lee, with Lee's character kind of being the dimwit of the group. I thought it was gold. I thought I literally didn't have to put out any promos, because Shoop was doing it all for us. So they were more interested in what he was doing, and I didn't really feel as if I had to put out any, which I could have, but what Shoop was doing was gold. I literally thought during those times, his promos for our angle for the IC titles, there is nothing that was better than that.
Oh yeah, no, never forget. No, that was a good time, man. And I agree, you guys did bring out the best in each other, and it was always a good match when you guys were going at it. And then going from there, man, the only singles match me and you ever had, unfortunately, I mean, who knows, but it was for the number one contendership for the title with Zach as the ref. The winner would, of course, challenge him. And me and you went out there, main event, 20 minutes, whatever. And it was good, man. It was actually the last time I was ever pinned in a ring. And then that would transition into you in primetime, main event of the Municipal Auditorium for the championship. Take me through all that. This is 2015 now, trying to speed things along here. I know we got to get wrapping up soon.
So, going into you and I build up, like at that point, you had become the next heel of the company. Obviously the establishment was Rick, or it could have been MPT, but, when you look at the structure, it was Zach's always been the top babyface, and Rick's always been the top heel. Well, who was going to be the next, wave of guys? Who was going to be the next ones to come up in there? And at that time, there was nobody on their game better than you and I. And I was leading the way in the baby faces, and you were leading the way in the heels. And somehow our angles all kind of just finally came ahead to where the fans were going to get to see Chico versus Mitch Valentine. And that angle, knowing that whoever won was going to be, in the main event. What was it for Extreme Pandemonium?
Pandemonium, yeah.
That was crazy. And I don't know, like anytime that you and I got in the ring, it was like I already knew what you were. I knew what you were bringing to the table. You knew what I could bring to the table. And the fans' reaction, the little extra hijinks that we kind of had on the side, with Donovan Troy, and of course having Zach up in the middle of the ring too. I really thought that was a special match for you and I, because we're literally got our trainer calling it right down the middle for us. What better of a way to have our first and probably realistically our only match, together in the ring, and that was great. That was cool.
Man. And then you in primetime would go on to tell some good stories. I was in Pennsylvania at the time, but I remember watching the promos, and you guys with Bradley Rotten building that matchup, getting to the auditorium, getting to that main event. Really, really good match. What was that like? We're wrestling primetime.
That was great. Anytime being in the ring with Zach, especially when it came to us training, you know how it was. Zach would either pick you or me, and we would be the ones setting the example for what was going to be trained that day at the work farm. So now it's kind of like when you get in the ring with Zach, you know, you're kind of going in there kind of expecting like, hey, this is my head trainer, this is my boss, you know, I'm going to listen to him. And I hadn't really gotten to that stage to where I felt as if I was kind of on the same level where, like, whatever I thought my opinions were, if I could express them. So I kind of just, you know, threw in a little bit of stuff here and there, but I kind of let Zach just, you know, run that match, because why not? I knew whatever he was going to do, he was going to give me an opportunity, and that match turned out rather well, with the storytelling and all, because where we were going to go with it. And it wasn't until about a year ago that Zach, you know, he'll bullshit me, you know, in the back or, you know, at the after party, and he'll be like, man, I don't know, but I probably should have let you go over that night. And I just look at him and I was like, you know, it is what it is. But at the same time, I was like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, with the way things went after that, I mean, and Bradley Rotten too, man. He finally got getting involved in a main event like that, because he was involved, and you and Brad, I thought, turning heel, that could have been something. And with the way things went, you know, I would win the title and I'd get hurt and leave and everything. But, you know, I really, like, the one thing I look back on after I left, leaving with the, you know, I left, didn't put anybody, I was the champion, wasn't able to put anybody over, and I always wanted to put you over, man. Like, it was either you or Sin. I was like, man, I'm glad I have this championship, but I really can't wait to hear that crowd when either a Sin or really what I've always thought would be for years is a Chico Lopez beat me for the championship. So definitely something I wish could have happened, you know. And just for time's sake, I know you gotta get back to your family here, and I definitely want to get you back on the show. But after all that time, man, these last couple years, what has been some of your favorite moments or matches you've had?
Let's see. Just with PCW or just in general?
Yeah, just in general, man. What are some of the things you look back fondly on?
For sure, the ladder match between myself, JJ King, Lee Perfetto, Shoop, Propane, and
Sean Gunn.
Gunn.
Big ass bump.
Yeah. Wow. That ladder match was something else. Like, watching back on it, I was like, yeah, there could have been stuff that was done a little bit better, but I don't know. There was something that night, like, we were all wanting to prove that, you know, we could stand out one way or another. And, you know, it was great to have the opportunity that I got that contract, which I believe led to me taking on Zach.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the long run, that was a good match. Any kind of match that I would have had with Shoot during our IC rivalry were great. Being able to wrestle you in the hot-ass work farm, man, with Zach being our referee, another good one. But if it really did come down to it, I think some of my best matches have yet to come, because there's still guys that I haven't really been in the ring with. I've gotten to work with Sin, and that was when he was coming up and he was getting hot as shit, you know, while I was still, you know, red hot too. And we had our thing go down, you know, and now look at him. So it'd be great to have, like, some different opportunities to wrestle guys that I haven't had a chance, like Will Roberts.
You guys have never had a singles, huh?
Never had a singles. We trained with each other. We used to sprawl and all that stuff, but never.
That's got to happen.
That one has got to happen. The dream one would be if there was a Scotty Abood out there. Yeah. You know, that match, but, you know.
You and Boyce, I think, would be good, too.
Yeah, me and Boyce, we never really crossed paths other than that tournament. Like, we had an 8-man tournament, and let's see, I made it past Christian Sky in the first round. So second round was Boyce, because one of his bad boys, I think Slate, was the one that took the dive or whatever. And then, so yeah, I had a little small opportunity with Boyce up in there, but yeah, it would have been cool to work with him. Because then, like, right after that match, I went directly right into with Rick. So, I don't know. I've wrestled quite a few guys to where, PCW brought him in and they were, work with us, whether they're working with APW or whatever, like Jacob Fatu, I got to wrestle him. And I thought that was awesome because look at him now, Jacob Fatu, he's doing big things.
Jealous, man. I really, really want to work that guy. Okay. Again, wrapping up, going forward, man. I mean, how many more years you got, man? What's the future hold for Chico Lopez?
I still think as long as right now I still feel good. I'm definitely cultivating a little bit more mass than before. I got another kid on the way, so
pregnancy weight.
Yeah, sympathy weight. I'm trying to make my girl realize that she's not big. I weigh more than her, so she can't say she's fat or anything. So I'm doing the luxury of giving her that solid. But I don't know, the last year and a half, 2 years, I've had a hard fallout personally with my kid's mom and all that stuff. So and you've seen a good portion of it or whatever, but I've had to do a lot in the last 2 to 3 years. Getting back on my feet, getting to a place where I'm at right now where, my kids have a better roof over their head, way steadier job, better finances coming in. So I've always had the time for wrestling, when we would do our shows. And I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. But as long as Zach needs me, he knows that I'm always there. And when it comes down to it, whether it's me trying to go for one more run at getting, becoming a Triple Crown, because that title is the only one that's keeping me away from it. I've held all the other ones. So if I could get that one under my notch, that would be great. If not, I still have no problem helping out the younger crews that come up in there and hopefully set some new standards for PCW and where it's going to go.
Yes, sir, man. Hey, Chico Lopez, man. Great wrestler, great trainer, great guy. Appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people find you on social media?
So most folks going to pretty much just see me on Facebook, but you ain't going to see really much. I kind of keep to myself. I don't really put myself out there. I like to be more private than anything. But, if you see me on the street and I look familiar to you, shout out Chico and you might get a Chico right back.